Hello everyone, welcome to this session, and in this session we'll be talking about one of the most important aspects of Excel, that is date formulas, date concept. What are the pitfalls, what are the issues that you will face while working with dates. If you're talking about sales data, if you're talking about purchase data, you may be talking about the HR, payroll, everything involves date, hence very essential. Let me begin with the first concept which is there in this grouping. So let me click on the grouping beside row number 15. Okay. Now quite often we input the date in this format, 21/04/2011. Let's say there's another date which says 31st December 2000 of the same year, 2011 to be precise. And how do I then find the difference? Now most of us by trial and error would have found out that choosing one date and using minus sign and taking a day prior to this date, we get the difference. But what do I see? It provides me an error value. Now why did this happen? Now to understand this, one has to go inside the concept of how a date is stored in Excel. What you may see as date is not exactly a date in Excel's standard. Excel by default follows MDY format of date. So in this case, had I written the same date in the format of MDY, let's see what would have happened. So 4, that's April 1st month / then day 21 / then the year. That was one date. Let me choose another date, that's the end date, so 12, which is signifying December / 31 / 2011. Now if I write the same formula, that's the end date less starting date, I will get the difference between the two dates, 254 days. Now that's the reason why we must delve deep into the concept of date. Why in the previous case it did not give me correct results, and why is it giving me now? Now to understand this better, I will ask you to do one thing, that is choose any date, let's say this date, and apply comma style. Is it turning to a number? Yes. If it is a correct date in the valid format as what Excel desires in its own standard, it has to be a number internally. The moment you apply comma style, it will turn to a number. Now what are these two numbers signifying? To understand this better, let me take you to the timeline, the sheet called timeline. Every valid date is a number, as we have found out. Now what does that number signifies? It signifies the number of days as counted from 31st December 1899. It's a system defined cutoff date, so you and I cannot change that. Now how does it translate in our discussion? Let's say in my timeline we are starting off with 31st December 1899, that's the starting point, cutoff date. And let us say we have taken one more date, 2nd January 1900. Now if you look closely, what is the difference between the two dates? Excluding the cutoff date, the difference is 2 days. Now this date, apply comma style. Let's see what we get. Exactly 2. Yes, my friend, that's the number of days away from the cutoff date. So you may say, by that count, any date should be a number. Yes, agreed. If it is written in the valid format and stored in the valid format, it will. For example, right now at the upfront you see it's 31st December 2011, but internally in the formula bar you will notice it is stored in MDY format as Excel desires. Now to take this further, let's say 31st December 2011 is my another date in the timeline. If I apply comma style, let's see what number it turns to. 40908 days. Now what is exactly 40908 days? This is nothing but the difference between the cutoff date and this second date. So let me verify that. Let me help you verify that in sheet 1, where let me go to 18th row and click on this grouping. With a quick experiment, we will verify how is that 31st December 2011 turning to some 40,000 plus days. Let us say my cutoff is 31st December 1899 And I can easily say that 1st January 1900 is also not very far from the cutoff date of 31st December. Okay. And till end of, we are trying to look for 31st December 2011. Okay. Now this is nothing but 1900 and beginning of 1900 and end of 2011. Now between these two years, what is the number of years difference, including both the years? It has to be 2 years, since we are including both. Agreed? Now look closely. If I multiply 112 with 365.25, this is to adjust for the leap years. Let me see what I get. 40908 days. That means difference between these two cutoffs, that is the beginning of 1900 and end of 2011, this is nothing but 40908 days. Now this is exactly what we got when we applied comma style on this second date, 40908. So that is just for a quick verification. You just need to remember one thing, that every valid date in Excel has to be a number. If it is not a number, it cannot be a date. For example, I had written the date initially in this format, 2011, 31st.12.2011. Now if I apply comma style, let's see what happens. Nothing. Had this been written in the right format, something like this, after applying comma style, let's see what comes up. Exactly. Now you may tell me that okay, I have verified this is a number, this is a valid date. Now how do I go back without pressing Ctrl Z? How do I go back to a format, a skin that I desire, a skin that I would want the date to look like? So in that case, you'll have to come down and go in the third grouping beside row number 40. Once you have ensured the date is in the right format, that means it's a number inside or in MDY format, you can change the skin by right click, go to format cells, and there is where you access the date skin. Let me show it to you. So this number 40908, let me right click, format cells, within which let me go to the date option. Now these are nothing but skins. So if I desire that this is the sample output I want, let me select the skin and press OK. Right click, once again, format cells. Let's say I want to change the skin which looks like this. But internally it will always be a number of days away from the cutoff date. Now this skin part will never be applicable to incorrect or invalid dates. For example, this one, right click, format cells, let me go to date and let me try to change in this skin. Let's see what happens if I press OK. Nothing. Skin is secondary, that's just the presentation, that's just the outer layer. Internally it has to be a date in the right format, every date being a number. Now how do you sense a particular date is a number or not? Of course I can apply comma style. For example, any date I can apply comma style, but when you're working with large amount of dates, how do you check whether these are numbers? So let me go to row number 61. Let me click on this grouping to be able to understand the data better, especially with regard to dates. Let me walk you through a formula called isNumber. Now isNumber, as the name suggests, it asks, is this a number? There's only one parameter to provide, so let me check this cell. Is this a number? Of course it is true. Let me copy and paste this formula. False. Of course this is not, although I would like to have one, but unfortunately this is not a number right now. Okay. Now let me try this isNumber in the date. Why? Because every valid date is a, yes, you guessed it correct, it is a number. So let me check. Ask this first cell. Yes, it is a correct date format. Is this? Yes, this is also correct. This is also true, although the skins are different, but internally both are the same. If I double click, you'll see for yourself. But if I drag this to the next one, false. This is not a number. Why? Precisely because this is in the DMY format. There is no month such as 31. So those were the initial concepts of date before we delve deep into the formulas. Just one thing to remember, in fact two. One is every date, every valid date is a, yes, you are correct, it's a number. And if it is so, then you can change the skin. Change the skin, as I mentioned that skin. How? By going to format cells. So we'll talk more on dates, formulas, the different case studies in the next session. See you there.